Hello. Systems. As you probably know by now, we have been covering the major pieces of Flecs, and I will now show you one of the most important pieces of it, the S in ECS, systems. Also, before we get started, I should probably mention that this video will use queries, because that's what systems are built on. I have 2 videos on them, so at least go see part 1 before watching this. I know you're already a master at queries by now though, so you should have no trouble here. Essentially, it's just a callback from a query. So take a look at this code example. I made some components, then some entities, and finally a simple query that we used in the past 2 videos. Make sure you're familiar with everything that is going on in the above code, because I will now be switching things up by removing the iterator. Let's have a system do the iterating for us instead. In order for a system to work, we must have another method to call. Let's make a method by putting the declaration at the top of our script like this. And let's name it iterate quebex. This is where we will now iterate our code. However, before we call it, we have to change the query slightly. Instead of a query, let's replace it with a system. To do that, replace ECS query T with ECS entity T. Yup, it's an entity. I'll rename it to quebex system. Without the asterisk, replace ECS query with ECS system, and that is the skeleton of a system. Now, let's make the query for it and attach the iterate quebex method to run the system. First, instead of terms, we now have to specify .query.terms. Everything else can remain the same. Finally, put .callback at the bottom and call our method by putting in the name of it and no parentheses. Before we run it, let's put some stuff in iterate quebex. You might be inclined to put the iterator and a while loop inside so you can loop over all of the different types and tables, but this will actually crash the program. Instead, we have to make the iterator a parameter of the function we called, like this. All of the types are iterated automatically, which is, I have to say, is a very nice feature, and all we have to do is worry about the iterator. But now we have no code in our method, so let's put in our components that we queried for, position and elder, and our for loop iterating through the entities that the query found. From there, you can use the system however you please. I'll give you an example here. All that's left to do is run the system. If we go back to the main function and put this run command, we can see the system working. It just needs the world, system, delta time. This is essentially saying how much time passes between frames, and 0 means Flecs will find that time automatically. And parameters. We have no extra parameters though, so we can just leave it null. Put bake run into the terminal and see the results. The last thing I should probably mention is the Flecs pipeline. Simply, a pipeline is a list of steps. Here are the steps that Flecs takes. These don't have anything in them, but you can add to them whenever you would like something to run in a certain order. To be honest, I only ever use the update ones, but they are all there for your disposal. Let's attach the system we made to one of these and run it every frame. This will essentially act as part of a game loop. First, we need to create a game loop, so I'm going to use some Raylib stuff for this. At the top of your main function, write init window, and put in the width and height of the window followed by the title of it. Next, just before the return at the bottom of the main function, put a while loop with the not window should close, so while the window shouldn't close, and begin drawing, clear background, ECS progress, and end drawing inside. The begin and end drawing lines are just used for telling Raylib when to start and stop drawing to the screen, and clear background just means to make the background white. The line we are interested in though is this one, ECS progress. This will run anything in the pipeline when it's called, and since it's in Raylib's while loop, it will run every frame until we hit the escape key or close the window. Let's attach the system to the pipeline so we can see it run every frame. Luckily, it's only a single line of code. You can actually use either one, they do exactly the same thing, so whichever you prefer. This will now call the system every frame if you run this. To quickly recap, a system is a query that calls a function, The function can be used to iterate the entities that matched the query. The system can be run manually by using ECS run, or told to run every frame by using the Flecs pipeline. And that's it. Yeah, you thought this would be difficult. Well, I shouldn't dismiss that possibility yet, because it's a lot to take in. That's why I'm here though, and why there's such a large community around both Raylib and Flecs, ready to help whenever you need. That does it for me though. I will see you another time. Good night.